Hello, my neurospices, and welcome to another episode of Trailblazers Rising. I'm so excited to bring my new friend, Allison Borstad, to my audience, to you all listening and watching. She is a fantastic coach for highly sensitive women in leadership, and she's gorgeous for anybody who's not watching and just listening. I want you to know. And my spirit guides were very loud about her when she came across my FYP couple weeks, months ago. I don't know. Time isn't real. And I am so happy to introduce you to her right now. Everybody say hi to Allison. Allison, say hi to everybody.
Hello, everyone, and I'm so excited to be invited on this podcast because I've been such a fan of yours as well. When you came across my FYP on TikTok, I was like, oh my gosh, who is this woman? So I love that we are bringing our brains together to see how we can help neurospicy folks live wonderful, easeful, successful, happy, joyful lives.
Wonderful, ease, joyful, successful. Write that down. The easeful part is very, very important to that concoction as well, especially during this year, Mercury retrograde, which we've already seen issues with, but hopefully will not continue. So let's dive on in and ask one of the questions that I ask every single person that graces this stage. And that is, what sparked your entrepreneurial fire? What moment in time do you remember where you just went, not working for anybody else anymore? God damn it, I'm doing my own thing.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, so I am a therapist by training, and part of our therapy training is people instilling so much fear in you and like really instilling like these boundaries, but in a way that I actually think started dividing like the human connection that is innate. Like therapy is one of the most intimate spaces for people to bare their heart to someone. And sometimes they have this like overly clinical presence and not just be a human or to be so boundary that they can't know who you are as they're bearing their soul to you and healing in your presence. And you're just like this blank slate mystery person. There's just more and more as I got into the therapy world. Like I did about 10 years of doing therapy, primarily with people with high anxiety, trauma, ADHD. And, the more and more that I did it and the more and more that I kind of bonded with folks and then kind of dabbled in coaching and other kind of modalities, I felt like traditional therapy wasn't it for me anymore, which is really interesting because I spent a lot of money and a lot of time getting all those degrees just to find that I felt like I liked coaching more. And so, yeah, and coaching is such a kind of an independent, I feel like it's very entrepreneurial by nature because usually you don't get hired necessarily to be a coach. Most coaches are fairly independent. So I think it's just whenever I felt like I needed the switch, even just decolonizing my practice of, like all of the
I was just thinking about oh my God. All right, spirit guides. I knew you were going to be loud this time. I knew it. I knew it. So when you're talking that you're a trained therapist, a lot of people who know me know that traditional talk therapy is not something that I recommend all the time to ADHD people specifically, because there is so much evidence, scientific evidence towards somatic therapies and physical movement. And we know that trauma is stored in the body. So, and we know specifically with an ADHD brain or an autistic brain, A, it's moving faster than a neurotypical allistic brain. B, we're obsessed with psychology to some degree, especially those of us that are later in life diagnosed or late realized, because we felt like an outcast our entire life and just told, oh, it's depression and anxiety, so you're going to have to fix it and then you'll be better. And it's like, well, we just told the things that you told me to fix it and it's still going like this. I don't know what's happening. So I'm so happy to hear, saying decolonization of the thing that you were taught, because we know traditional talk therapy is based out of cishet white dude.
Yes, and including the disability narrative of everything. I have kind of a love-hate relationship with that because I do think in some ways we do need to like recognize our need for accommodation and that like the main way people are doing things maybe are not going to fit with us. And so from that perspective, okay, yes, that shoe fits, but otherwise it's truly just a different way of being. And so that was the other thing of like diagnosing people with disorders. And again, I have a love-hate relationship for all this. It can be really freeing and helpful, I think, to get diagnoses just to kind of find a community, understand what's going on, find like the right things that are going to help you under that label. But at the same time, I do love this kind of expansion model of kind of designing your own life and creating the life that you want, regardless of what everybody else says you should be doing, and not trying to mask or pretend to be neurotypical and just be you, do your thing, right? And I love that approach with coaching, like the opportunities, the innovation and the possibility that's therein for creatives and entrepreneurs and people who think differently to kind of march to the beat of their own drum in a way that is also really, I think, freeing a lot of other people who also march to the beat of their own drum, right? To give them permission to do so.
Yeah. There's so much to be said about the mindset of seeking permission, right? So there's something called human giver syndrome, which I have recently found out about and really sums up how I was raised as a woman, human being, to manage the emotions of everybody around me, from my parents to my siblings to my extended family to my friends to my husband to my children. I mean, you can just think back on every Christmas you've ever had at your house, or every Christmas at your grandma's house when you were a kid, right? The women don't fucking sit down. And therefore, how is this? How is this? Right? Yeah, we are the vibe maker, but we're not responsible for how everybody else in the house is feeling. And if we rely on feeling good based on how everybody around us feels, you're going to exhaust yourself and you're going to resent everybody in your life, every single person. So when it comes to entrepreneurship, how long have you been in the game, from running your practice, coaching, all that sort of stuff?
So since 2019, so 4 years so far. So depending on who you're talking to, newbie, and then to other people, they're like, "Show me your way." But it's been
Right?
yes, it's always funny. But there is no going back. There is no regrets. All the moments of oh shit that come with taking leaps and going into entrepreneurship and failing forward and figuring out what the fuck you're doing when. Sorry, can we swear on here?
Absolutely, you can.
But yeah, I mean, it's been kind of a wild ride, but it is, I think it scratches my ADHD brain just right, because I am a very multi-passionate person who loves to forever be a student and learn and switch things up and be the decision maker and be the one who kind of runs the show. And as long as my self-care is on point and I be like a really good manager and boss to myself in that regard, it's been honestly nothing short of magical.
So I'm going to scrap the next question I was going to ask you, because you mentioned self-care, and this is where you and I really, really shine and agree. So when I attempt to explain self-care and what I mean by, intrinsically weaving in self-care throughout your day to all of my clients and to the members of the Neurospicy Academy, and really anybody that I care deeply about and that runs close in my circles, I am not talking about a massage or a facial or a pedicure when I say self-care. I am literally telling you that you are the only one on this earth that I am. When I talk about self-care, I mean literally making every decision based on how it's going to affect you, and try and make every decision to affect you in a positive manner. So when it comes to self-care for you, what is it that you wish everybody knew?
Yeah, so for me, self-care is structural in that, like, the little things that we kind of bring in around the edges. So it's like, the massage and getting your nails done and all that kind of stuff, and exercise, which are all amazing things we should all be doing anyways. But it's more of, to me, true self-care is doing way less. I think people at large do way too much, and we wear exhaustion as a badge of honor, and we think that we need to be busy and productive and doing all of these things all the time. And if you just look
Yeah.
at the health statistics of Americans, especially, why do we all have heart disease and cancer? Like, all these things are linked to chronic stress. So, and then when you bring in a neurodiverse person who gets overstimulated, has deep processing, like, we get exhausted so much more quickly than everybody else. It's just facts. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing. We also, with our deep processing, pick up on details and magic and all the stuff that other people don't. It's, a double-edged sword, but we need to be doing less, and I think really focus on a handful of really important priorities and be happy and content to do a handful of things really well. Not to say that you can't switch things up and be eclectic, but not trying to pack every moment of the day full of productivity. Like, I hate some of these productivity hacks. I'm just like, do less. That's the productivity hack.
Yeah.
You'll have less brain fog, less confusion. So for me, it's more of like, what can I strategically say no to and get really good at strategically saying no all the time? Every request that comes in, I have to really think of, does this align with my values and my goals? And sometimes it's an amazing request and it's just like, yeah, but it doesn't fit. So no. Like, I say no all the time to all sorts of things, that I feel like that should be the basis of self-care. It's like choosing ahead of time what you really want,
Yeah.
and like really locking into that unapologetically, and then really finding a way to say no to the rest, which can be really hard for a lot of neurospicy people who kind of people please as part of their masking to kind of blend in and not feel so different or so othered. But I think to really boldly be like, no, that's not aligned with my focus right now is a skill that we all, especially as entrepreneurs, really need to build.
Because let's talk about this too. For the entrepreneur, I don't care what stage of entrepreneurship and business ownership you're in. When you are around anybody who has like a 9 to 5, right? Or a restaurant job, whatever it is, but a job where they have a schedule dictated by somebody other than themselves, right? I have stopped being friends with some people who treated me as though my time wasn't as important as theirs, or that my time was more flexible than theirs. So therefore I should be able to do more things for them. Like, I'm an adult, you're an adult. Don't ask me to drive you to the airport because you should be able to get your fucking ass to the airport, and especially not really early or really late in the evening. Oh, well, you say you do your own schedule. This has literally happened to me before where somebody's like, will you drop me off at the airport at 6 o'clock in the morning? No, I'm not going to do that. But you say you wake up at 5. I do to do the things that I want to do, not to take your grown ass self to the airport. What are we talking about? So the blatant disregard that can happen from your friends or acquaintances when they don't understand that entrepreneurship is, doing a lot of unpaid work for a really big payout eventually.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned this because I have a handful of clients who are full-time content creators, and people shit on their all the time or say that it's not a real job. And some of them that I work with, they've come to me because they work literally 80 hours a week. I mean,
Yeah.
their brain is always on and they're always thinking of new ideas, and like they kind of never switch off, and that can lend itself into like creative burnout where they eventually like, I hate this, or I've lost the fun or the zest for it, and we have to kind of pull back so that they can like refine their magic again. But a lot of these creative jobs, or especially when you work for yourself and you're the one who's really dictating the money that comes in. It's like one thing I know lots of people who kind of clock in and clock out, and depending on the work, sometimes can kind of phone it in, and still get paid the exact same paycheck, right? Versus, when you're running the show, there's a lot of pressure there to be on. And yeah, I think it actually requires even more self-care too, because of some of the anxiety that comes with taking risks and being visible and putting yourself out there. Like all this takes so much courage that also triggers our nervous system that we then have to like balance in real time. I think people who are rising up through levels of leadership need deeper and more conscious self-care because of the amount of energy then we're putting out. Like if we're trying to impact all these people and give good energy, then like we got to make sure that our energy well is filled, right? Like obviously, if you really get into the energetics of it all, if we're coming to a place of service from a place of depletion, that's some weird ass energy we're giving our clients and the people who follow us. It's doing them a disservice and us a disservice.
You're so right. And you're feeding right into the next question of how do we then, or how do you find that balance, strike that balance between the strategic side of entrepreneurship, because that's a totally different, to where it's totally different energy and mindset, and the creative flow that we have to be able to tap into regularly and, on demand to some level and extent. How do you find that balance, that sweet spot?
This is the question. And this is the thing that I think I'm always working on. And I think a lot of my clients are always working on as well is, it's sometimes hard with especially the ADHD brain. I'll just speak to that because that's the brain that I have. We can get really hyper focused and really excited and really jazzed about things and get these like bordering on hypomanic kind of like creative, just like floods, downloads, right? Where we're just like, screw sleep. Like I'm going to pour all this kind of stuff out. And I do actually believe to some degree in writing some of that out because sometimes some genius will really come out of that. And so I think we need to like hold base for that. And at the same time, I've definitely allowed myself at times to go follow off some of these like cool, amazing new bright ideas and abandon some amazing ideas that were already in the work that I just need to like continue to see through or find a way to kind of do the mindset work to stay excited about the things that are no longer new or novel. So some things I'm like, oh, I know all about this. Who cares? But if I'm teaching something that's new to other people, it's really important. So at least for me, what has really helped, honestly, is having a solid team of advisors, of people I trust, both that have a similar brain as me and a totally different brain as me. I have quite a few neurotypical type A folks, both coaches and also kind of marketing support that kind of help be this nurturing sounding board for me, and everybody that I've kind of brought into my life are all very respectful of my brain and my style as well. So when they give their feedback, they're very kind about it. And they're also like, this is a great idea. Put it here, come back to this. Like, let's stay focused on this, and then we'll find a way to work it in. But I think just sometimes having sounding boards and support to help you kind of know when to lean into the creative side and then know when to kind of bring the structure back. We really do need both. And at least for me, it gets really easy to kind of get overly carried away in one or the other, overthinking in the strategy, or just having way too much fun, if that's possible. It's not possible actually, but in terms of like not giving, the things that I've committed to enough time, it's we really do need both to move forward.
Yeah. I found myself often cycling through consumption mode and production mode. So I'll be scrolling a lot. I'll be taking a lot of notes. I'll be brainstorming or brain dumping a lot of ideas. Like this morning when I was putting my hair on, most of it's mine, but some of it is not. And I'm in my bathroom, right? So like I have systems and strategies for every part of my life, business and personal. So when I'm in my bathroom, I take my shower, I brush my teeth, I do my hair, whatever that's going to be. And, whatever else happens in there. And then my makeup happens over on this side of the house. So I'm back there, music's playing, having a good time. And I straight out downloaded probably 10 content ideas that I'm going to make when we're done with this interview. And you just get the notes app on your phone and you're like, la 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 la, right? So then when it is time to create content, you just go to that notes app and you say, oh, these are all the ideas that I was going to do. So let's pop them out. So what I have found and what I really try and instill in the Neurospicy Academy members, especially in my clients, is don't try to produce if you are feeling consumption-y, right? So if this lines up with the luteal phase of your period, if you're a person with a uterus and a fem cycle, then, that luteal week when you're super cranky and you're bloated and you don't feel good, don't plan on creating plan on hypothesizing it or consuming it and getting good ideas and being inspired from it, right? But I'm not going to put my face out there and attempt to be nice when I have PMDD and what's the other one? Why can't I think of it? Endometriosis. Sorry. My periods are not easy, so I'm not going to be putting out content or filming content during that time, right? So when it comes to neurodiversity, and the reason that I use the term neurospicy is because there's so many conditions, quote unquote, under the umbrella of neurodiversity. It's not just ADHD. It's not just autism. It's not just ADHD. You're talking dyslexia, dyspraxia, all sorts of other ones, right? At this point in my unmasking process, I don't know if it's a stim or a tick at this point because I no longer suppress the stim. And sometimes they just, like when I get done in the shower, I do a cold shot of water for 30 seconds to a couple minutes. But again, time is not real. So I could be in there for 10 minutes or 2 seconds. I don't know. But I do that cold shot of water at the end of it to ramp up my dopamine production. And that makes me slap my thighs when I get out of the shower like they're a drum every single time. Wouldn't matter if there are 10 people watching me or anything like that. Just that's what my body's going to do. So when we talk about neurodiversity, especially, and being highly sensitive, what do you wish people knew about managing your nervous system in the entrepreneurial space?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because where my mind goes, I think this applies to anywhere, whether it's in the entrepreneurial space or not. But like our bodies just hold so much wisdom. And I think this is true for all people, but especially in terms of highly sensitive people. I see a lot of overlap, at least in my experience, of people who are HSP, highly sensitive. So this is a big umbrella term that is not limited to ADHD, autism, anything specific. It's anyone who basically gets overstimulated easily. It's this idea of deep processing. It's about 20% of the population, which I don't know, it's both a minority, but actually kind of a large one too, if you really think about it. So in every room,
it's probably bigger than that too, because they know all of their projections and their estimates at this point are wrong.
Fair too, right? But yeah, but it's funny though when people kind of feel other as being highly sensitive, and the idea is if you're in a room of 10 people, there's only one other person that brings in stimuli kind of similar to the way that you do, and then everybody else is like, "What's your deal? Why are you overreacting?" So, but a lot of the people that I work with who are highly sensitive in that way are also very intuitive, and some people want to label this a trauma response. Maybe this is where I diverge a little bit from the therapy field. Is I am a highly spiritual person. I do think that some of these people might be the people who are meant to be the shamans and the healers and the spirit connectors and I do think this might be a part of people's purpose and role. And a lot of times intuitively, you get all sorts of weird tugs and pulls, typically more in your body than in your brain. And a lot of times they're wise. And I know you talk about spirit guides, and I love spirit guides too. So I love that you're going there. And sometimes they will divert your attention to things, or you'll be like, I have to leave the room now. This is really chaotic and random and weird and not polite or not normal or whatever you want to say. And yet I have this big intuitive tug. And it's interesting when you start really following and trusting those. Not only typically it usually serves you well, just in terms of what you and your body needs, but also a lot of times I feel like it syncs you up into like the synchronicities of the universe, right? Of like, I don't know why,
Yeah.
right? And this is again where I feel like sometimes magic happens where you're kind of trusting into, again, your embodied intuitive wisdom that's even smarter than, our mind, I think, a lot of the time. And we kind of glaze over that in our modern Western society. We've kind of lost touch with a lot of the embodied wisdom. And yeah, and the ability to kind of allow magic to happen and just like, I guess, trust yourself truly that maybe what you're doing is not so crazy or random or wrong, or these tics or all these things that we have pathologized through the
Yeah.
medical field. Might be something to
You
all.
know, the pathology is a big barrier to entry, right? So a lot of times the comments that I get on my TikToks or my Instagrams or whatever are, how do I get diagnosed? Here's the thing. First and foremost, a diagnosis is validating 100%. But a formal diagnosis is not necessary depending on what your goals are. First and foremost, I want everybody to know, if you get a formal autism diagnosis, there are some countries that you are not allowed to go to. If you get a formal autistic diagnosis, you could potentially have a lot of issues if you separate and divorce your partner and are trying to get custody of your kids. Like, it's a really deep, intense issue. And I wish that the focus was less on getting a diagnosis so you can start accommodating yourself and more on, hey, I can start accommodating myself right now because I think that I have this, because I've done the research. Because think about it. If you have a cold or the flu and you need to go to the doctor for medicine, you have self-diagnosed that you have a cold or the flu and you got to go to the doctor. Same thing with a broken wrist. Hey, something's not right in here. And I Googled it and it has all the same signs and symptoms of a broken wrist. Let me go to the fucking doctor, right? So if we can move away from the conversation of getting your diagnosis and move more towards doing your research and doing what's best for you and realizing, like you said, I don't have to do everything the polite way. Because here's the thing. I am not going to be polite to somebody who's talking to me in an inappropriate way, right? We all have that with family members or friends or whatever it is, where they decide they want to start talking about somebody who's not at the family event. That's not polite, and I'm not going to be polite and take part in it. I will always be kind when I speak to people, but sometimes kindness means removing yourself from the situation and letting that person know that what they're doing is not right, because it simply ain't right. So when it comes to the highly sensitive women in leadership that you are working with, what do you see as like a common thread or theme when it comes to their overstimulation? Like when they get overstimulated, what they feel, what happens, and how we can start fixing it.
Yeah. So a lot of times when people are just overstretched, overstimulated, they're usually feeling exhausted, irritable, resentful, which is anytime there's resentment, I'm like, oh, this is like a tell of burnouts either happening or coming. Like your boundaries are being crossed. But then the last one, which is really interesting, is guilty. I swear resentment and guilt are like two best friends, in terms of overstretching and doing all these things. But like, why do we do this? It's because of this internalized guilt of like, well, I should be doing this, or this concept of shame and failure. A lot of times, like, of highly sensitive people shaming themselves for being tired or overstimulated. And then they come oftentimes either to therapy or coaching to be like, how do I stop being this way? And I'm like, wrong question, right? Because like your brain and body are functioning how it's designed to do it. It's all working correctly. So if you're getting cues of exhaustion, that's your body telling you you're overworking it. And if you're feeling resentful, then that's cues from your body that people are crossing your boundaries and likely you're allowing it, right? And so basically your body and your mind are giving you homework here. They're actually likely working just how they're supposed to. They're meant to keep you alive and well. So that's where I think like reorganizing how we even orient to anxiety and some of these feelings to kind of normalize them of like the body's wisdom. And that, okay, like I need to rethink about how I treat myself and that I'm not like whipping the horse harder to run longer. Like I always tell people, like, if you went and ran a horse for 6 hours straight and the horse collapsed, you wouldn't be like, what's up with this horse? This one's faulty. Get me a new one.
Yeah.
You'd be like, you need to rest the horse. You need to give it water. Like you need to do all these things. You need to train it properly. And so I think just even rethinking the way that we think about productivity and work and even what we expect out of ourselves, especially what we compare ourselves to with what we might see on paper or on social media, might be the work of an entire creative team. And yet a lot of the entrepreneurs that I talk to are like, my stuff doesn't look like that. And I'm feeling and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, of course yours doesn't. And you're not feeling for it to not look like that. You're not at that stage yet. You're getting there. So be in the season that you're in and respect it.
Being in the season that you're in and respecting it really rings true. I realized today, and it's something I'm going to start making some content about. I've been in business for about 3 years, and I have completely shifted gears, restructured, whatever you want to call it, at least 3 times in starting my business because I am an energy healer, psychic intuitive, and mindset coach, because there is so many different elements that come into play, and striking the harmonious balance between coaching and psychic intuition and body healing and energy healing and whatnot that I really like to focus on. It's like, okay, well, and my most recent one has been since about like November of last year is when I started my most recent restructure and shift. And this one's been a doozy. Really zeroing in on the unconventional, very driven, AFAB, raised female, entrepreneurial woman of all walks and backgrounds, all walks of life and backgrounds, and all different kinds of businesses. And I found that the common thread for, who I'm meant to work with and who I'm meant to help now are the women that are on the upswing of that healing journey, right? So I understand why I've been behaving like this, get the trauma responses, I get my diagnosis, like I understand. Now I am fully ready to embody my complete and utter potential every single day, which is going to fluctuate. I want everybody to know that. Being consistent doesn't mean that you show up 100% every day. It just means you show up every day. And sometimes it's just to say, here, and then go back to bed, right? Like there's no flaw in that. So really helping people understand we can heal the cycle of burnout while working, right? I'm not telling anybody you have to take a sabbatical and go down to the Betty Ford and get all the help that you possibly can because you've been in a cycle of workout and addicted to stress. And, like you said earlier, wearing their exhaustion as a badge of honor. Those are all things that you've been conditioned to believe. So we can recondition while enjoying the journey. I'm a rusher. I don't know about you, but my factory operating setting in my brain is there's no reason if you have 3 hours and you got to go to the grocery store, there's no reason to rush through the grocery store. There's no reason to rush through that email, right? Like there's no reason. Nothing else. Nothing's going to change whether you take it at a nice, even keel speed or you allow your brain to go, 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 right? Like, let's chill the fuck out. So personally, my headphones and my sunglasses have made such a gigantic improvement in my life just as a human on earth, right? If I'm going outside early in the morning, I get a little bit of sunlight in my eyes before I put my shades on. But any other time that I'm going to be outside or like in a grocery store lighting situation, sunglasses are on to overstimmy. I am a highly sensitive human. Lights are too bright, smells are too strong, sounds are too loud, all that sort of stuff. And to the point where if I get to the grocery store and I don't have my headphones, I'll turn around and go home and get them. So what are some of the tools that you like to use to help you keep a nice regulated nervous system?
Yes. Well, so not to be so coachy about it all, but mindset been a huge help. I think just catching all of my conditioned thoughts and expectations. And I love what you said about people on the upswing of the healing journey. I've been a therapist for over 10 years. I've been in school for all this stuff. And yet I catch myself all the time doing conditioned behaviors, things that I'm like, oh, I worked on that 6 years ago. I should be past it, right? But it's very ingrained. And so I think staying in the work of both journaling and meditation, like being hyper aware, I suppose, of the narratives that are going on in your head and then reframing them. And I'm very similar to you is that I'm very energetic, right? And I think that's like part of maybe the fun part of the ADHD is this enthusiasm and passion, and it's like always ready to go, right? Unless, like you said, a the luteal phase, right? Where you're like, and now I'm tired and I'm done. But I really do find reframing certain things, and especially when it comes to the go, go, go thing for me, it can at times come from a place of not enoughness when it's in the kind of toxic driving zone. And other times it's just like I'm excited and that's great. But one of the things that recently I've reframed a bit, because one of the things that I've always been told growing up, and one thing I try not to say to my really ADHD son too, is be patient. Just be patient. Just wait calmly, right? However, a reframe that I've had that kind of still allows there to be that energy, that like I'm just that chomping at the bit energy, is being at peace and enjoying the now, while also, anticipating or moving forward. But I think it's impatience feels like suffering when like it feels wrong. Like, oh, like I need to get to the next thing. This isn't right. And I think like finding ways to be more at peace and more comfortable and enjoy the now, and things like you said of just basic. Let me put my headphones and my sunglasses on. Like, let me do all these micro accommodations and also bigger accommodations that just make this whole the concept of kind of being present and patient or peaceful or waiting as an enjoyable process. As we're creating, we're also resting like simultaneously.
Yeah. I always tell myself too, like, first and foremost, when it comes to manifesting, if you cannot love and appreciate what you have right now and see the abundance that you have right now, the universe is a lot less inclined to send you more abundance, because why are you going to appreciate that? Look at everything you have right now. You don't appreciate that. And also, if you can like be present and happy in your present space, like what is happening right now in the moment, and be mindful in the moment, then your future is always going to be fantastic. But if you're waiting for a future moment for everything to be great, like, okay, when I get my first 10K client, when I get my first 20K month, when I get my, whatever the fuck the goal is, right? If you're expecting for your happiness to come at that moment, you can't be happy now. Your brain at that moment, when you achieve that goal, is just going to say, when I hit my next, right? If we're only focused on that other, then you're never going to be happy. So really, the mindfulness and like daily practices that I have to stay in the present moment is, I'm not much for meditation. I try. I like the moving meditation, but what I really like to do to calm and center myself throughout my day are little breathing techniques. So I just, I say, wait a minute, have I had a deep breath lately? And you can tell by just stopping and taking a deep breath. And if you cannot take a big, deep breath, you've been shallow breathing for a little while, right? Absolutely. Thank God our bodies can keep us alive just without us thinking, heart pumping, lungs moving, but they're not always doing it ideally, right? So there's a lot of power in intentional breath work to calm the mind, optimize the body, that sort of stuff. So are you a meditation girl, or are you a breathwork girl, or do you have something other that's cooler and easier and more fun to do that I don't even know?
A little bit of all of the above. So interestingly enough, I spent a summer 10 years ago in a Buddhist monastery in Taiwan, where they just kind of open their doors and like anyone who wants to be trained like a novice monk or nun can just come and learn to meditate. And they work you up to about 12 hours of meditation a day at the very end of it. And I learned so much from doing that, including how mentally torturous meditation can feel, right? And even I actually think sometimes it's dangerous depending on what mental state you're in. I actually don't always recommend meditation, or if I do, I usually tell people literally a minute is like, will do wonders. And for some people, it's more like prayer, or it's more of like, I've asked a question and now I'm waiting to hear. Or it can be a more focused meditation. Maybe your eyes are open and you're just really taking everything in, doing like the five senses kind of meditation of like, let me ground in the present moment. I'm hearing, I'm smelling, I'm seeing, I'm fully here. But yeah, I like to be eclectic, and I also like to kind of figure out what makes sense for my mood. I know a lot of people want to have like those routines, and I think having some degree of structure of a routine of like maybe 3 or 4 out of 7 days, I do this thing to try to stay on track. So a gratitude practice is huge. Definitely a spoken one is great, but a written one is better. There's lots of evidence that shows that it literally grows the joy centers of your brain. I mean, there's measure literally everything. So when in doubt, like gratitude is plenty. And then the one other thing, just to kind of bring the mindfulness or the meditation piece in, is there's also a lot of research on savoring the moment.
Yeah, the little glimmers. Yeah. I can see something. You're like, wait, I didn't think I was going to see that today.
You lock it in. You make a moment. Like yesterday, I had one of these moments where I was dropping my 3-year-old off at the babysitter, and all of the other little 3-year-old came up and wanted to hug me before I left. And I could just be like, oh my gosh, I got to get to work. Like, what are these kids like? Oh, Jeremy kids or whatever. But instead I was just like, what magic that all of these little toddlers just came to, like, bless my day and came to just give me love of their own volition, and, like, I think sometimes just really sinking and expanding that moment, like, trying to, like, pause time for a hot second, like, let me bottle this in my brain for a minute of just little everyday magic and miracles that are here just to, like, fill up your tank, and there's also lots of clinical research that shows when people do this, if you ask them about their subjective stress levels, "How was your last week? How was this week?" People be like, "You know, it was pretty good." Even when there were other highly stressful things going on, like, their brain automatically accounts for those positive things that we tend to bypass because of the negativity bias of the brain and our threat bias and all that kind of stuff. It literally rewires our brains to see possibility, see opportunity, be joyful, enjoy the moment, all the good things, and it's pretty easy to do, and it's free.
Yeah, I mean, for the neurodivergent brain, especially ADHD, is a real motherfucker. And because of that negativity bias and because of that danger bias, and your brain is literally wired to be judgmental every piece of stimuli that it picks up on, not to mention the fact that your subconscious is running the show. 90% of I saw a statistic somewhere, it's like 90% of the decisions you make every day are subconscious. Damn, no wonder I drove all the way home and don't remember the drive. Thank God for autopilot, right? So I find myself and my clients find themselves on autopilot a lot, right? Because our brain is moving so fast. And because we have this muscle memory that's, deeply ingrained, right? I use it to my advantage when it comes to quantum shifting. Are you a believer in the quantum? I bet you are. I don't have to continue. So quantum shifting, right? This is something that I teach my more advanced client, right? So quantum shifting is the idea that you can hit your higher timeline real time, either overnight or, via a shower, using some sort of modality or mechanism to consciously go, all right, next level, right? So I, a lot of the time, like to use sleep meditation. So I'll fall asleep listening to a quantum shifting meditation. There's one that's like 2 hours and it's by Jason Stevenson. If you look up quantum shifting meditation on YouTube, it'll pop right up. And I like to do that. And I also just like to take a shower and do something. If you do a mundane task slightly different than you normally do it, you can quantum shift in real time. So if you're normally taking a shower with playlist A on, right, with all the lights on in your bathroom, and you go into the shower, it takes 10 minutes to get out. If you have a regular routine for it, switch up the routine. Have a different playlist, have different lighting. Don't rush through it if you're one of those people like me and you rush through everything, right? Do it slightly differently and you are shifted consciously into a higher timeline, right? And I use my muscle memory to know when this has happened because my car will feel different. Like the seat feels like it's been adjusted somehow, right? Because I quantum shifted into a higher timeline. I have before too done it. This one was wacky. I was riding my bike and I have this 10-mile track. It's like 5 miles this way and then 5 miles back through this beautiful part of the neighborhood. Love it so much. I'm so lucky to live here, like the millionaire part of the neighborhood, right? And on my 5 miles east, I don't know what direction it is, there, it was just normal, regular, like la la la. And on my 5 miles back, same ride, there was a pothole, but almost like a sinkhole. If you're in Florida, you know what I mean. It's like one of those big, deep holes in the middle of this neighborhood road that already had a cone in it. So in the 10, 15 minutes that it took me to go from that spot back to the other spot, the whole road and everything had completely shifted. And I said, okay, quantum shifting, I'm fucking here for it. So when it comes to that practice, it does require mindfulness. How do you quantum shift?
So I feel like sometimes quantum shifting just happens without, you know what I mean, without consciously doing it. But usually I think it's accumulation, I think, of all the other practices we're talking about. Especially, I'm a huge believer in ritual. Huge. I think for a very similar reason of I talk to some people who are a little bit maybe more scientific or secular, whatever you want to call it, than I am, which, hey, I respect. I don't claim to know all the answers here. But even just subconsciously giving your brain very concrete indicators, like the idea of writing something down and burning it or tearing it up, like, I'm done with this. It's done. Cord cutting ceremonies, all of these things. Like, you don't even have to believe in the magic of it or whatever. Just for your
But it's
intellect.
real.
But yeah, but at the same time, every time I do that stuff, all sorts of the universe meets you halfway, right? You're basically like, I've now opened myself, I've opened my eyes to these possibilities. And it is really interesting in terms of like really opening your eyes to, like you said, getting out of the habits and really looking around, or even looking around as if you were like an alien from another planet, like stepping into your house for the first time. Like, this is a practice I do every so often. and just notice everything of like, what's going on here? Is this what I want? Does this align with who I am now versus who I was 3 months ago? Right? What needs to shift? And like having these kinds of questions, I think can really help in staying aligned with the greater vision too. Of like what do I see myself doing in 5 years? And what does she look like? I know this is like a very common practice for a lot of entrepreneurs, but like, what does she look like? How does she talk? What is she doing? Like, what does she figure it out that I'm still figuring out? And sometimes those answers come so quick. And then once they click, you're like, oh, I can't operate any other way. Like, oh, that answer, I just downloaded it. Here it is. And now I have the answer that quick. And now I can move forward with that answer. So I think tapping into, the future, the past, the ancestors, like there's so many sources of information that I think, again, have been really discredited just culturally over here in the West and overemphasizing the scientific model versus more maybe indigenous practices or things that are just have been here since the dawn of time, like this intuitive human wisdom. There's so much possibility out there. And I think that's the thing. As long as we stay tapped in the possibility, really our life can just continue to expand. And I cannot tell you how many times I've gotten stuck in a weird little mindset about something, especially when it comes to maybe attracting clients or something. I'll be like, nobody wants this. Nobody I think we've all gotten into these dark kind of self-defeating mindset. And then every time I snap out of it, every time I find in my DMs and in my emails, inquiries that I missed a week ago, whatever, of people who wanted the stuff, but because my mind said no, then I subconsciously wasn't checking the email enough or whatever, and was literally blocking the result. Right. So I think we also need to really be wise to, what we're feeding our subconscious all the time and being like, it's working. Nothing has gone wrong. The universe is conspiring for my highest good. I am expanding and growing every day. Life is magical. How lucky I am to be alive. And I love all of this. I'm ready to share my love.
Yeah.
That's really all you need.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. All right. All right. I lost my spot out on my questions. All right. I just love that so much. So I got the tinglies. A lot. Hold on. I'm going to get really excited and my dogs are going to come over here. Let me try and bring it down. Okay. So before we do the lightning round of questions that I ask everybody that are ADHD through and through, I'm going to ask you to plug your spot, tell the listeners how they can find you, where they can find you, and how they can work with you, everything.
Yay. Well, you can find me on TikTok at Self-Care Consulting, all squished together, no hyphens or anything in there. You can also find me on Instagram, and that one that's at self_care consulting. But I'm really excited. Actually, I'm launching a new membership group that allows people the opportunity to be in small coaching group. Let me start again. My brain is going blah, 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 blah. Okay, one watching container. My dyslexia just came out where basically it's just going to be a whole group of highly sensitive women in leadership that are just working through all of these things that we're talking about in terms of owning your true genius and also accommodating your sensitivities unapologetically. And so we have 6 coaching calls a month. It's $150 a month for the subscription. So that's happening. You can also work with me individually, reach out to me to talk about that. So that's all I'm going to plug.
Yes, we love it. Okay. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
The lightning round. First and foremost, what's your favorite social media platform?
TikTok.
Down. Second question. What's the most recent rabbit hole you've gone down?
Definitely the task positive mode network and the default mode network of the brain. I've been doing a big deep.
Hold on. Now I got to research it. Task, pause, and then what other one? What is it?
The one that you need to know as a neurospicy person is the default mode network. Google it. I'm actually going to put up a TikTok explaining this in a second, but that's like literally it's the mind wandering theta state, meditative, trance, creative mode of the brain. And it's supposed to turn off whenever you're doing a task. When you're like, I need to get this thing done, it's supposed to switch off. In neurodiverse people, it never switches off. This is why we have random ass thoughts all the time. It's why it's so hard to focus, that we have to like exert so much more effort to bring it back over and over and over again. So look into it. It'll make your brain make sense.
So the default mode network. Listen, I just found out because I started following another creator. I got to remember her name for this, that our brain requires a low level of stimulation to be able to fall asleep. And the fact that I need a show on to fall asleep, like what I was doing was watching a show until I get real tired. And then I would switch it over to like a nighttime sound or anything like that. And my brain turns back on. And it's like, okay, what are we doing? I'm like, no, we were almost asleep. What's happening? And now that I just leave Downton Abbey on at a quiet volume while I'm sleeping, I stay asleep for a lot longer, and it's a lot easier to fall asleep when I wake up.
Amazing. I know. Isn't it funny? Like,
Yeah. So that was my rabbit hole, just so everybody knows. All right. Number 3. This is one of my favorite questions. What is your emotional support show? So, like, what do you watch when you want to unwind and you can't take on the emotional labor of anything new?
So it rotates because I'll exhaust it and then be like, I can't do this anymore. Sometimes it's Arrested Development. Sometimes it's Schitt's Creek. Sometimes I go way back to like Dawson's Creek or something that's like real cringy, good old 90s kind of stuff. Just brings me back to my youth. So those are usually the go-tos, either that or
We like all of that.
A million times. Yeah.
We like all of that. Fully approved. 4th question, 2-parter. Have you consumed any water today?
Yes.
And do you want to share your emotional support cup with the audience?
Yeah, I love this question.
So much dopamine. Oh my God, that's the cutest thing.
I love foxes. I because of the red hair, I'm always like, I'm a red-tailed fox at heart.
Yeah.
Walk through the forest. So, and I love that actually the quote on this says, wherever you are, be all there. So every time you take a sip,
Oh my God, that was the cutest thing ever. Redheads inherently in my brain are foxy. Like, if you're going to use a descriptor for a redhead, foxy is going to fit just about every single one of them for sure. I don't know why, but that makes total sense in my brain. I love that. All right. Last question. What is your current dopamine meal or snack? What are you eating on repeat until it no longer tastes good?
I'm giving you such a dumb, boring thing, but what I've been doing lately. So honestly, it's been protein shakes and chicken, which I know, like, whatever, but I've been really taking the advice of really upping protein for neurospicy brains in terms of boosting energy. And it's been working. And I've been trying to decrease the sugar consumption because that used to be the go-to, but I was having insulin resistance and spikes and crashes and all this kind of stuff. So I hated it the first week, second week, whatever. Now, 3rd week into this, I'm like, oh, damn, this is like, maybe I'm hungry for like real food. And if I actually like nourish myself, I'll be in a better place.
It's hard to get enough protein in.
It's worked, but it really makes a huge difference in energy.
Excellent. All right, my sweet angel Allison. I want everybody listening or watching to go follow her on all the socials, check out her new membership program, and thank you so much for sharing your insight and your wisdom on the show.
Thank you so much. This has been so much fun, and we'll talk again soon.
Absolutely. Okay, I love you all equally and for different reasons. Okay, wait. Oh, I guess.